name's Sarah Woodbury. I write novels set in medieval Wales, and we're here today to talk about making sense of medieval Britain, historically speaking.
As a non-historian, I have a lot of trouble, getting my head around all these different people and dates and where they came from and why they're there. How do you keep all this in your head? How do you make sense of it all in a way that when you look at a place, you know this?
My interest is really in medieval Wales, but in order to make sense of this small place, you have to understand what's going on in this greater context. And I do that, particularly as an anthropologist, which is my training, by thinking about the people who were there over these varying time periods and trying to connect them with other peoples who came and went. In Britain in particular, though it's a huge oversimplification to say, there were 5 major groups of people who came and time periods that they covered. The initial ones were the Celts, coming around maybe 800 to 600 BC.
Okay.
So they are now kind of referred to as the Britons because that's how the Romans, who came in 43 AD, referred to them. The Romans lasted 400 years, then they left in 410, just like up and left. They had their own problems, and the Britons were left essentially defenseless. So the Saxons, which are a group of a whole bunch of different people, obviously Anglo-Saxons and Jutes, but we call them Saxons for these purposes. And they started invading immediately after the Romans left. They took over most of England, ultimately, at least culturally speaking, pushing the Britons into Wales and turning them into what we now say is Welsh, the Welsh. The fourth wave of conquest were the Danes, who again took over most of Britain, or England actually, and then were beaten back by the Saxons.
So the Danes, but the Danes, did they actually rule, or did they just go out and conquer things? Or?
Well, they actually brought families, and they controlled all of the kingdoms of England, but Wessex.
So were those Vikings?
They were Vikings, yeah. So the term Viking is actually from the Danish, Norwegian, Swedish idea of going a Viking, meaning going conquering, which they did really, really well. And so they came and conquered most of England and were ruling these separate kingdoms until Alfred the Great.
Were they going other places as well?
Yeah, they went, the Vikings, and we can call them Vikings or Danes, left that northern their lands in northern Europe, and they went to Ireland. So that's a place that we've been as well. They established the city of Dublin, as well as Waterford and Wexford, and kind of ruled a portion of Ireland up until another Norman conquest in 1169. They conquered Normandy and became Norman, which actually turns out to be the 5th wave of conquest into England, were the Normans, who are descended from the Vikings. The Vikings also went as far east as Russia and south as Sicily.
Okay. So, but one of the things that, so those are the 5 groups of people.
Groups, yeah.
So one of the things that we always go see when we're there are these massive churches and monasteries. So what's the story with the churches, and how does that relate to these different groups of people?
So religion is one of the primary cultural markers, as anthropologists say, and influence people's behavior from the beginning of humanity, essentially. And so each of these 5 groups had a different religion. The initial ones were polytheistic. You could say pagan if you want. The Celts had their religion. The Romans brought their religion. The Romans then, however, converted to Christianity in the time of Constantine in around 300 AD, which meant that the Britons converted to Christianity too, at least some of them. So even after the Romans left in 410, they left Christianity behind. The Saxons, however, when they came immediately thereafter, were pagan again. So you had the Christian Britons and the pagan Saxons. The Danes were also pagan.
Wow.
By which point, though, when the time the Danes arrived, the Saxons had converted to Christianity. Wow. So it's this successive wave of religion and the differing religions, and each of these peoples put their own stamp on Christianity as well. the Normans, by the time they invaded in 1066, were Christian, and they brought a very Romanized or Latin version of Christianity to Britain, England, and they are responsible for most of the giant cathedrals that
Was
you
it
see.
Catholic? Was that considered Catholic
Yeah, so,
at that time?
so they were, it was the only Christian religion. So
Yeah.
there was no difference between Catholic, there was no Protestant.
Yeah.
There was one church.
Yeah.
And so they would say the Holy Catholic Church, but it's lowercase c, meaning all-encompassing.
Okay. Wow, that's cool. So that's how you keep it all straight.
That's
So
how I
you've
keep
got-
it all straight.
You've got 5 groups of people, and they come in different time periods, and then you've got this religion that overlays it.
Right.
Oh, that's cool. I can make a graphic for that.
You can make a graphic for that, because that's what you do.
All right. So next time, maybe we can talk about the Celts and where they came from.
I would love to talk about the Celts and where they came from.
Awesome.
If you like this video, click on the playlist or subscribe to my channel. There'll be a new video next week. And if you want to check out my books, click on the link to my webpage.